500 offer revealed. My ex's incredible proposal to erase our past exposed by her fiancé. Tim wiped sweat from his brow as he leaned over the engine of a rusted pickup, its familiar smells of oil and gasoline a comfort. He was knee-deep in his small-town life, juggling 2 kids and relentless bills as a dedicated mechanic. But everything shifted one evening when an unexpected message popped up on his phone, a text from Sarah, his ex-girlfriend. The words hit him like a freight train. She was offering him $500 to erase their tumultuous past. The kicker? She was engaged to a slick businessman who, worried about his family's judgment of Sarah's humble roots, came up with this outrageous idea. Tim's heart raced, torn between the desperation of his financial situation and the values his parents instilled in him: loyalty, integrity. He rubbed the back of his neck, contemplating how much good that cash could do for his kids. Could it buy new clothes, or maybe even fix the leaky roof? But then, a tightness settled in his chest. Was he really ready to sell a piece of his past, and a part of himself, for a quick fix? Later that week, as he gathered with his lifelong friends at their favorite diner, the air was thick with the scent of fried chicken and laughter. The neon lights flickered as they shared stories, and he unburdened himself about the text. "You can't sell out like that, Tim," his buddy Ray said, earnestness in his voice. "What do you think that money is going to buy you?" "It's worth far more than cash." They debated fiercely, each friend weighing in on the matter, nudging Tim to dig deep and remember his worth beyond money. Their words echoed the very heart of small-town camaraderie, simple, genuine connections that went beyond the surface. But tension surged when the local fair rolled around. A night meant for laughter and rides suddenly morphed as Sarah strolled in with her fiancé. Tim felt the air compress around him. Their worlds collided in a jarring clash of shimmering wealth and rugged authenticity. The laughter around them faded into whispers when her fiancé, oozing arrogance, confronted Tim. "You really think a wrench can outshine a Wall Street deal?" he said, disdain coloring his words. Tim's face flushed with humiliation, a storm of anger brewing within him. Just as he was about to explode with a retort, Tim's mind raced. A flicker of clarity emerged. This confrontation wasn't about petty money, it was a moment of truth for all involved. He couldn't let those feelings of shame overshadow his pride. As the crowd observed silently, the weight of judgment hung thick in the air. Tim opened his mouth, ready to speak against how society measured worth. Was it truly defined by wealth, or was it found in the depth of character and relations forged in this small community? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Tim squared his shoulders, Sarah's expression faltered, and her fiancé began to twitch with discomfort. How could a small-town mechanic challenge the values of an affluent world? The room waited, breaths held in anticipation. Would Tim stand firm against the tide of societal judgment, or would he be swept away by the allure of a quick fix? The moment hung in the balance, the future uncertain as he prepared to voice the truth that could shatter or illuminate their tangled past. Tim felt the weight of a lifetime pressing down on him. The crowd held its breath, but he could hear the thundering of his own heartbeat echoing in his ears. This wasn't just about Sarah or her fiancé, it was about his own self-worth. He looked Sarah in the eye, searching for the girl he once knew, the one who had laughed with him under the stars and dreamed of a future that felt possible. In that moment, he realized something vital. The past, while messy, was a part of who he was. It shaped him, grounded him. He took a deep breath and found his voice. "What is this really about, Sarah?" Tim asked, cutting through the tension like a knife. "You want me to erase our past so you can fit into some perfect little box? Is that what love is to you?" The room gasped, the disbelief hanging in thick air around them. Sarah began, her face shifting, the confidence wavering. But he kept going. "You think throwing some cash my way can change what we had?" That it can vary all the hurt and the laughter and the lessons learned? His words tumbled out, as raw as the memories they stirred. I might not have much, but I've got pride, and that matters more than any dollar amount. The crowd began murmuring. He caught glimpses of supportive nods, realizing he had struck a chord. A few of his friends shot him proud smiles, while others glared at Sarah's fiancé, who was losing his cool. You think pride will feed your kids? The fiancé scoffed, desperation creeping into his words. In the real world, it's about money and success. Maybe so, but I'm showing my kids what it means to be a good person, Tim shot back, feeling fire in his veins. What kind of example does it set if I sell myself short? He felt a spark of hope ignite in him, urging him to fight for his beliefs. Sarah's expression shifted again. The confidence slipped away, replaced with confusion and regret. I never meant for it to come to this, she said softly, her voice trembling. I loved you once. Tim's heart twisted at her admission. But what did love mean in this context? Was she trying to buy her way out of a memory, or was she lost in a world where love and wealth were entwined? I know we had something great, but this I can't just forget that, Tim said, feeling the weight of nostalgia crumbling under the reality of their diverged paths. We chose our roads, Sarah. I can't erase mine just so you can feel better about your choices. The crowd shifted, sensing the stakes rising higher. He caught a glimpse of his kids, a mix of innocence and admiration in their eyes. They deserved better than this twisted notion of what success looked like. As silence enveloped them once more, Tim realized he wasn't alone. Support wrapped around him like a safety net. It was about more than just this confrontation. It was about being true to himself and showing his children what it meant to stand up for one's beliefs. But as Tim turned back to Sarah, ready to conclude his piece, a commotion broke out at the other end of the fairgrounds. There was shouting and the crowd shifted uneasily, eyes darting. What was happening? With his heart racing, Tim felt a new urgency rise within him. Just as he was about to address Sarah once more, he could hear fragments of conversations spiraling. His thoughts were interrupted by the sight of a figure pushing through the throng, every face turning toward the chaos. Nothing would prepare him for what was coming next, and this time, it would change everything. Would Tim be able to rise once more to defend his fragile world, or would he be swept away, powerless against the storm? Tim's gaze was drawn to the figure breaking through the crowd. A woman, wild as a summer storm, pushed her way past stunned onlookers. Her hair whipped around her face, painting a picture of chaos amid the tension. He had never seen someone move with such urgency before, and his heart skipped a beat as she got closer. It was his sister, Claire. Her eyes were wide, glistening with alarm, and there was a panic in her voice as she shouted for him. Tim, you need to listen. The murmurs of the crowd faded as he locked eyes with her. Each word felt critical, a lifeline against the uncertainty surrounding him. What's going on, Claire? Dad? He asked. She struggled for breath, her chest rising and falling with the effort. He collapsed at the coffee shop. They're taking him to the hospital right now. A cold shiver rolled down Tim's spine. The fairgrounds faded from view, replaced by the gaping hole where his father's laughter once echoed. The words hung heavy in the air, shifting the ground beneath him. In a heartbeat, the fight he'd just summoned to confront Sarah evaporated, leaving only a desperate need to be where he was needed most. Are you serious? What happened? He felt the world tilt as voices buzzed around him. His children, wide-eyed and anxious, clung to each other, sensing his panic. Claire shook her head. I don't know all the details. Mom's there, but you have to come. I just wanted to make sure you knew. Tim glanced back at Sarah, and for a fleeting moment, he saw recognition in her eyes and understanding that transcended their previous argument. His heart ached at the memory of good times lost, but now wasn't the time. He had to go. Okay, I'm coming, he said, turning to Claire. Let us go. They raced together through the crowd, weaving between stunned faces and murmuring voices. Each step felt heavier than the last, carrying years of love, conflict, and unresolved emotions. The fairgrounds faded behind him, a forgotten world wrapped in the chaos of their past. He felt his pulse quicken as they burst out of the gathering and into the parking lot. Did you call Mom? Yeah. She said he was responsive, but they're checking him for a lot of things. Claire's voice broke, and he could see her battle the urge to cry. She had been strong all their lives, and yet here she was, trembling in uncertainty. Okay, we'll get there, Tim said, trying to keep his voice steady. He's going to be okay. But even as he spoke, a knot twisted in his stomach. It wasn't just fear for his dad, it was all the things left unsaid, all the moments they had taken for granted. As they reached the car, a flicker of movement caught his eye. Sarah stood at the fringe of the crowd, watching them go. Their eyes met once more, and something unspoken passed between them. Maybe this was the moment that changed everything, the moment that pulled threads from their past and intertwined them in a new way. But in the rush of adrenaline and worry, Tim turned away, starting the engine. There was no time for introspection now. He had to focus on what lay ahead, what his family needed from him. As they sped down the road, uncertainty clawed at him. What if it was serious? What if he didn't get the chance to say all the things left unsaid? The thought sent panic rippling through him. Tim? Claire's voice broke through. Do you think he's going to be okay? I don't know, he admitted, guilt gnawing at him for everything he hadn't resolved. But we'll get there, and we'll face it together. As Tim's heart raced with worry, he knew one thing: this was just the beginning. The storm wasn't over yet, and when he reached the hospital, he would face not only the possibility of losing his father, but also the echoes of his past screaming for resolution. But what awaited him inside those hospital doors? Would he find the strength to confront his fears, or would the weight of lost time crush him? The hospital stood like a fortress, imposing and cold against the twilight sky. Tim parked the car, a knot of dread tightening his chest. Claire was already out, hurrying towards the entrance, her worry palpable in the air. He followed, feeling as if the building loomed over him like an unyielding wave ready to crash. Inside, the stark lights illuminated a waiting room filled with anxious faces. Tim spotted his mother first. She sat slumped in a chair, worry etched deep into her features. The sight tightened his throat. They'd been through so much together, yet now she looked so fragile, as if the weight of the world had settled on her shoulders. Mom! Claire rushed to her side, her arms wrapping around their mother. Tim lingered for a moment, taking in the scene. Then he joined them, enveloping his family in a tight embrace. The warmth of their love was a stark contrast to the chill of fear that surrounded them. Has anyone heard anything? He asked, trying to gauge the atmosphere. His mom looked up, her eyes glossed with tears. Just that they're running tests. They said your dad was conscious but confused. Her voice broke, and Tim's heart sank further. Confusion wasn't a good sign. At that moment, a nurse appeared, clipboard in hand, her expression calm yet professional. Are you family of Mr. Thompson? She asked, scanning the room. Tim stepped forward, his heart racing. Yes, we are. Can you tell us how he is? The nurse nodded, her demeanor reassuring. He's stable for now, but we're keeping him under observation. We need to find out what caused the collapse. It could be anything from a fainting spell to something more severe. The words felt like a punch to the gut. Can we see him? Tim asked. You can, but please keep it brief. He's tired, she replied, gesturing for them to follow. Tim exchanged a glance with Claire. They both swallowed back their emotions and followed the nurse down the sterile corridor. Each step felt heavy, filled with the prospect of facing their father in a state of vulnerability. Finally, they reached a room at the end of the hall. The door opened, and their eyes fell upon their dad, lying in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines that beeped gently in rhythm with his breaths. Tim's heart surged with a mix of hope and fear. Hey, Dad, he said, stepping forward. The older man turned his head, a flicker of recognition lighting his tired eyes. Tim, Claire, what are you doing here? His voice cracked, strained but still laced with the familiar warmth Tim had always known. We came as soon as we could, Claire replied, her voice steady despite the tremor beneath it. What happened? I was just getting my coffee, he said with a weak chuckle, his grin fighting through the fatigue. Nothing like a little excitement in the morning, huh? Tim couldn't help but manage a small smile despite the gravity of the situation. Seeing his dad try to lighten the mood brought back countless memories of simpler times, but it also reminded him of all the conversations they still needed to have, the reconciliations left unspoken, the confessions locked away. "Dad," Tim started, taking a breath. "You scared us, you know. But it's good that you're awake. We just need to know you're okay." "I'm all right, son." "Just a little scare," his father assured, but Tim could see the weariness in his eyes. Suddenly, the door swung open again, and Mom stepped in, a tumult of emotions swirling in her eyes. "Oh, Howard," she breathed, rushing to his side. Tim noticed how her hands shook as they clasped his father's. He exchanged knowing glances with Claire. This could be the moment, the conversation that they'd been avoiding. It wasn't just about their father's health anymore. It was about family, about addressing everything they had left unsaid. As they began to settle into a rhythm, with his mother comforting his father, Tim felt the weight of unresolved conversations flooding his mind. What if this was their last chance? A loud beeping interrupted his thoughts, and doctors rushed in. Tim's heart raced at the urgent tone in their voices. He grasped Claire's hand tighter. "What is happening?" "Stay calm," the doctor instructed, but panic flickered across Tim's chest. He could feel the storm within himself rising again, that same uncertain chaos he'd left at the fairgrounds. Would he have the courage to face what lay ahead, or would this moment slip through his fingers just as their time together had? The battle was still far from over. The chaos in the room swirled around Tim like a cyclone. He stayed rooted to the floor, breaths coming in short gasps. Claire's fingers squeezed his as the doctors moved in a well-orchestrated dance, their voices clipped yet commanding. Tim's heart sank. This wasn't just a standard hospital visit. This felt different, urgent, critical. "Is he okay?" he managed to ask through grit teeth, desperation clawing at his throat. "Just a precaution," one doctor replied, not pausing in action. "We need to monitor his vitals closely." Tim stole a glance at his dad's face, pale and worn, yet somehow still radiating that familiar strength. He saw the flicker of uncertainty in his father's eyes, a shadow of fear that spoke volumes. "Howard, stay with us," his mother urged, her voice cracking under the strain. She held his hand tighter. Tim wanted to reach out too, to ground himself in that moment, but every instinct told him to brace for the worst. He hated this feeling. He hated the feeling of helplessness washing over him like a heavy tide, threatening to swallow everything whole. The doctors continued their calm but swift examination, murmurs of "check his levels," and "we need that chart" drowned out by the incessant beeping of the machines. The sounds were a reminder of how fragile life was, how quickly everything could change. "Can't you do something?" Tim finally burst out, the words spilling from him in a rush of frustration. "He asked my dad. He just needs to be okay." The lead doctor turned to him, expression softening. "We're doing everything we can. Just give us a moment." The words should have reassured him, but they hung in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating. He felt Claire's grip tighter as the moment dragged painfully. After what felt like an eternity, the doctors finally stepped back, exchanging hushed conversations. Tim noticed the way Claire's face transformed, hints of relief and worry dancing behind her eyes. His father's breathing steadied slightly, the beeping alarms blended back into a calmer rhythm. But Tim could see the frown etched on the doctor's lips. "Mr. Thompson, we need to run some additional tests. There are factors we need to understand better." Howard nodded slowly. "Okay, just tell me when you know," he managed, his voice hoarse, but still holding that familiar hint of determination. Tim's stomach twisted. What if just a little scare had bigger implications? The conversation they had been avoiding pressed heavier in the air. It wasn't just about today, it was about everything they had brushed aside in the rush of daily life. Suddenly, Tim's phone buzzed in his pocket. He almost ignored it, lost in the moment, but when he glanced at the screen, his breath hitched. It was a message from a number he didn't recognize. "Urgent information regarding your mom's insurance. Call me right away." Puzzled, he swiped it away, but the thought wormed its way back. What could be so urgent? His mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. "Tim?" Claire's voice cut through his thoughts, her brow furrowed in concern. "You okay?" Yeah, he hesitated. Should he share the message? I don't know. I think I just need space for a moment. Don't you dare wander off, she warned, a little smirk teasing her lips despite the weight of the situation. We need to stick together. As the doctors discussed next steps with their dad, Tim stepped back, his mind a whirlwind. He needed to keep it together, for Claire, for their mom, and especially for their dad. But as that message lingered in the back of his mind, he couldn't shake the feeling that this hospital visit was only the beginning of something far more complicated. Would his father's struggle open doors to hidden family secrets? Would they be ready for the truths that lay ahead? Tim leaned against the cool wall of the waiting room, his heart racing. Claire's insistence kept ringing in his ears like a mantra. They had to stick together. Yet the urgency of the text message felt like a physical weight pressing on his shoulders. Can I really focus on Dad when this bombshell just dropped in my lap? He glanced back toward the room where his father lay. The yellow-green light from the monitoring machines cast a ghostly glow on his dad's face, still holding that flicker of strength. It reminded Tim of the countless times they had tackled challenges together, father and son, both persistent against the storm. But this felt different. This wasn't just one of the usual battles. This was survival. Tim? Claire's hand on his arm prompted him to look at her. Her eyes were wide, reflecting her concern. What is going on? You seem distant. It's nothing, just tired, he deflected, but the lie sat heavy in his chest. Claire studied him for a moment, her brow furrowing deeper. You know you can talk to me, right? She said softly. Tim opened his mouth, ready to share the urgency of the insurance message, wanting to scream how everything felt like it was piling on top of him. But the fear of burdening her with more darkness silenced him. Instead, he forced a smile, even as he felt like he was falling apart inside. Just then, a nurse walked past, her expression focused and kind. She paused briefly. You're waiting on Mr. Thompson, right? If you need anything, just let us know. Thank you, Tim replied, forcing the words through the growing lump in his throat. She moved on, leaving him once again with the churn of confusion and dread. The minutes crawled by. Tim's foot tapped anxiously on the hard floor, and he could feel Claire's gaze upon him. It was like she knew there was something he wasn't saying. He sighed deeply. Claire, what if he began, but his voice faltered. What if I exposed too much? The thought of sharing the insurance message twisted his gut even further. Before he could collect his thoughts, the door swung open, and the lead doctor stepped out, eyes scanning the room before landing on them. Mr. Thompson's vitals have stabilized, but we need to keep him for further observation. He spoke with an air of cautious positivity, yet the frown still lingered. Can we see him? Claire asked, her voice a blend of hope and uncertainty. Just for a bit. We want to ensure he's resting comfortably. Tim nodded, his heart both lifting and sinking at the same time. The relief of his dad being stable was a small light in the suffocating shadow looming over them. Step by step, he followed Claire as they moved into the room. As they approached the bed, Tim felt the flood of emotion rise again. His father's eyes met his, a deep ocean of wisdom, love, and an unspoken understanding. Hey, champ, Howard rasped, his voice barely audible but steady. Hey, Dad, Tim replied, squeezing his father's hand gently. We're here. Good, Howard breathed, the faintest smile breaking through. I'm fighting, you know that. I know, Tim whispered, but his own heart sank again as he glanced back at the door, the weight of that message pulling him in two different directions. He needed to be strong for his father, to hold together the pieces of their family. But what if the truth that lurked in the shadows of that text message was a piece he couldn't ignore? Would bringing it up only cloud the already thick air with even more complications? As Tim wrestled with his thoughts, the beeping of the machine suddenly intensified. The rhythm spiked, causing panic to grip the room. Claire turned sharply, eyes wide with fear. Stay with us, Dad, Tim exclaimed, his voice strained and broken. But as the chaos built around them once more, he realized that some battles weren't just faced against illness, they were also about facing truths that could shatter the very foundations of their family. And as the doctors hurried back into the room, Tim felt a growing certainty. The moment of confrontation was approaching, one way or another. Would he dare to face the beginning of a new struggle, or would he let fear hold him back? The chaos in the room escalated as nurses rushed in, their voices commanding and urgent. Tim's heart raced in sync with the frantic beeping of the machine, a siren's call to action that filled the air. He gripped his father's hand tighter, as though his touch could anchor Howard to this world. "Stay calm," one nurse shouted, her hands swiftly adjusting monitors and checking the intravenous lines. Claire's eyes darted between the chaos and Tim, panic etched on her face. "Tim, what is happening?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "They're just doing their job." "He'll be fine," Tim replied, though he could hardly convince himself of that. Every instinct screamed that this was different. Even the light in Howard's eyes seemed to flicker, reflecting the fast pace of the machines. "Talk to him," Claire urged, her anxiety bubbling over. "He can hear you." "Dad, you've always been my rock," Tim said, his voice fighting against the rising tide of dread. "You're going to push through this, I know it." He felt tears welling, but he fought them back. He wouldn't crumble now. The doctor returned, illuminating the scene with a brief but steady presence, assessing the flurry of activity around them. "Okay, everyone, we need to clear the room." "Just for a moment," he said, his tone firm but not unkind. "We're going to take care of him." "No, I can't, I need to be here," Tim protested, panic bubbling to the surface. "Out now," the doctor insisted, and it was clear there was no room for negotiation. Tim stepped back, intent on standing his ground, but Claire gently pulled him away. "We'll be right outside." "They know what they're doing, Tim," she whispered, guiding him toward the door as the medical team went to work. Tim felt like he was being ripped from his father. "I can't just stand here," he exclaimed, desperation creeping into his voice. Claire held him in a firm embrace, her warmth a comfort against the cold of the hospital hallway. "You have to trust them. Your dad needs you to be strong right now." Swallowing hard, he nodded, though deep doubt remained. The news of his father's stabilized condition now felt flimsy under the weight of that singular moment of crisis. And then, just as quickly as the chaos had ignited, it dimmed to an eerie silence. "Why did this happen?" "Everything was fine just a minute ago," he murmured, feeling defeated. "They're all here for him, Tim. It's what they're trained to do," Claire reassured, though fear flickered in her eyes as well. They waited, the minutes stretching into what felt like hours. Tim's mind churned over and over again, the text message clawing for attention. Each second seemed to taunt him, reminding him of how fragile everything was and how deeply he would need to confront the future. Finally, the door swung open again, and the doctor emerged, looking composed, but the shadows of concern still stained his features. Tim's heart raced once more. "Mr. Thompson is stable again, but we intend to monitor him closely," the doctor said, each word carrying a weight of seriousness. "His recovery will take time." As relief washed over him, Tim caught Claire's hand, squeezing it tightly. They were in this together, no matter how deep the waters got this time. "Can we see him, please?" Tim asked, his voice steady despite the tumult inside. "Yes, but keep it brief," the doctor said, opening the door again. As he entered the room, Tim felt the whirlwind of emotions in his chest, hope tangled with fear, love swirled with despair. Howard lay there, still weak but already regaining his fierce spirit in those familiar eyes. "I knew you'd be here," Howard rasped with a smile, his voice barely more than a whisper. "Always, Dad." Tim fought the urge to burst into tears. But before he could settle into the moment, the deep dread of the insurance message rose again, looming just outside the door of his mind. He had to find the right moment to share it. Was he ready for the fallout? As he faced his father, a question nagged at him, weaving itself into the fragile fabric of their reunion. Would confronting this truth bring them closer or tear them apart? And as Tim held his dad's gaze, he couldn't shake the feeling that the battle wasn't just against sickness. It was a battle for everything they had built together, now at the precipice of change. What if the path forward meant more complications than they could bear? Tim's heart thudded heavily in his chest. Howard's gaze, though tired, was a beacon in the storm raging in Tim's mind. The moment felt both fragile and electric, hanging suspended in time. But buried beneath the relief of his father's simple acknowledgement, the words of that text message ripped at him from behind a veil, a storm cloud of uncertainty hovering over this reunion. "Dad, there's something I need to tell you," Tim began, hesitating as he searched his father's eyes for permission. He struggled to find the strength to say the words that could shatter this moment. "Anything, son," Howard said, a shadow of concern crossing his features. "What is it?" Tim swallowed hard. "It's about the insurance. They're cutting coverage. It's going to be tough. I received a message about it last week." The slight flicker of confusion in Howard's eyes was quickly replaced by a piercing vulnerability. "What do you mean? What does this mean for us?" The question held the weight of impossibilities. "It means we might have to face some tough choices. It's not just about the hospital, it's everything that's coming after," Tim said, knowing he was walking a tightrope. Each word felt like a fragile promise. Howard's brow furrowed. "And you waited until now to tell me?" There was no anger in his voice, just a deep concern for what lay ahead. "Why wouldn't you have told me before?" "I didn't know how. I wanted you to focus on getting better," Tim admitted, his own voice rising with a pent-up frustration. "I didn't want this to take away from what we have, what we're fighting for." A long silence loomed between them, heavy and loaded with unspoken fears. Even now, as strength and love radiated in Howard's eyes, the sickening reality of their looming financial struggles began to taint the light they shared. What had been a reunion of hope now began to fray at the edges with the implications of the future. With a slow, deliberate breath, Howard spoke again. "Tim, I've been through a lot. We'll tackle this together. Just like we always have." His voice, though strained, held a familiar, reassuring tone. Tim felt a swell of emotion, a desperate gratitude. But what if that's not enough? What if we lose everything? What matters is that we have each other, right? We'll figure something out. "We always do," Howard replied, his faith unwavering even in the face of uncertainty. But the dread still hung heavily in the air, gnawing at Tim's peace. He knew that the answers wouldn't come easily, and the path ahead was riddled with obstacles. As Tim fought back tears, wanting nothing more than to absorb that spirit of resilience, the question echoed again. Was fighting together for a future that felt irretrievably out of reach worth the risk of losing each other in the process? Before he could respond, the door creaked open. A nurse peeked in, her expression neutral but welcoming. "Mr. Thompson, we need to run a few more tests. Just a precaution." "Okay, I understand," Howard said, managing a steady nod even as a hint of tension creased his brow. "Can I stay with him?" Tim quickly asked, unwilling to lose their connection just yet. "Unfortunately, we can't have anyone else right now," the nurse replied gently. Tim glanced back at Howard, who offered a small smile, trying to ease the situation. "Go on, Tim. I'll be here when you get back. Just stay close." As Tim stepped out of the room, he felt the heaviness return. The hallway felt long and uninviting, filled with the echoes of hurried footsteps and distant alarms. He leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath. Outside the room, he pressed his hands to his temples, feeling the pressure building. The text message burned in his pocket, a constant reminder of everything that threatened to unravel. What would they do if this turned into something from which they couldn't recover? Unless they faced this head-on, how could they hold on to what they had? He gazed down the hallway, sensing that the real struggle was just beginning. "We can't do this alone," he muttered to himself, steeling his resolve. That when he noticed Claire waiting for him, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. He stepped toward her, ready to face the questions, even if the answers felt like a weight on his heart. "Tim, what happened?" she asked softly, taking his hand. He drew a breath, knowing he was about to share everything. But a dark thought loomed. Could opening up draw them closer, or push them further into the abyss? As they stood there, poised on the edge of everything that could happen next, one undeniable truth broke through. He needed to find a way to communicate not just the challenges, but the love and strength between them. And as he turned to Claire, His heart raced not only with fear, but with determination. Would they tackle this together, no matter the storm? Tim took a breath, steeling himself. The warmth of Claire's hand offered a fleeting comfort, but the heaviness of their conversation loomed just as large in the dim hallway. I got the test results. About Dad, he stammered, feeling the weight of variables crushing him down. Things aren't too good. They're cutting his insurance soon, which means we might have to make some difficult choices. Claire's brows knit together. What kind of choices? Her voice was soft, but there was a sharp edge beneath. Choices that could affect everything. His care, everything we've fought for. The words left his mouth like shards of glass, sharp and painful. Oh, Tim. Her expression shifted, pain flooding in as her hand tightened around his. Why didn't you say something sooner? Because I didn't want you to worry. I wanted to protect you. Protect him. Claire's eyes darted away, absorbed by a world of thoughts. You think I can't handle this? That we can't handle this? He struggled to find the right words. I don't want you to feel burdened. Tim, love isn't a burden. It's the opposite. Her voice remained steady, but the worry in her eyes told a different story. I want to be in this with you. We're a team, remember? His heart raced as he contemplated her words. All at once, the tumult of uncertainty felt a little less daunting. Maybe I'm scared of ruining everything. Scared that if we delve into the hard stuff, it'll push us apart. Claire's expression softened. But if we avoid it, aren't we just living a lie? Hiding from what's really happening? Tim felt the truth of that statement settle between them. Wasn't that exactly the struggle? He nodded slowly, the walls around his heart beginning to chip away. Okay, but it's a lot, Claire. I can handle a lot, she declared, determination swirling in her gaze. We'll break it down together. Tentative relief washed over him, but it came mixed with a nagging fear. What if we can't find the resources? The money, it might not be enough. We'll find a way. You and we can brainstorm. You can't forget I have connections. People willing to help. Your dad, he recalled, suddenly struck by a thought. What if we reach out to him? He's stable enough now. Maybe he can guide us. Claire nodded vigorously, her eyes sparkling with renewed hope. Exactly. And there are community resources too. You're not alone in this. We just have to look. The flicker of optimism ignited a small flame within Tim, but deep down, dread lingered. But will it be enough? I keep thinking about what that text said. If it's true, we could be looking at a nightmare. Tim, no matter how it plays out, we will find the light in the thickest storm, Claire said fiercely, pulling him closer. As they stood caught in each other's gaze, a moment of clarity passed between them. It wasn't just about finding stability, it was about facing every aspect of their lives together. Let us not wait until it's too late, she encouraged, squeezing his hand tighter, her resolve echoing his heart. Tim felt the burden lift just a little, a budding warmth replacing the cold grip of fear. Okay, together, we'll fight it. Just as they began to plan their next steps, the ambient noise of the hospital shifted. Another nurse ambled by, her face a mask of professionalism. Excuse me, but Mr. Thompson has some visitors. You'll need to wait here for a moment. Panic surged through him. What do you mean visitors? He asked, confusion lacing his voice. Just family, she replied casually. They have a few questions about his care plan moving forward. Tim felt his heart race, dread washing over him again. What had he not prepared for? Had someone else stepped in? Tim, what's wrong? Claire asked, instinctively picking up on his distress. I don't know, he replied, breaths coming fast. Did someone else take charge? I don't want to lose control of this. But before he could voice more question, the door to Howard's room swung open wider, revealing a well-dressed man nursing a familiar face. The stranger stepped into view, and Tim's world tilted, feeling instantly like the unraveling of a tightly wound cable. Claire's grip on his hand tightened. Who is that? She whispered. Hard in his throat, Tim stepped forward, trying to wrap his mind around what this could mean. Would unexpected alliances be formed? Or would this stranger unveil chaos they were unprepared to handle? The door was just opening to everything they hadn't anticipated, and the dark questions loomed larger than ever. What had they just walked into? Tim's heart raced as he stood frozen in the fluorescent light of the hospital corridor. The stranger's presence was like an unexpected storm brewing on a clear day. He took a deep breath, trying to make sense of the moment, searching his memory for familiarity. The man stepped forward, revealing a hesitant yet determined look. As he drew closer, the recognition struck Tim like a lightning bolt. David, the slick businessman who had tried to erase his past. Tim, David said, his voice smooth yet edged with uncertainty. I need to talk to you about your dad. Tim's composure wavered, conflicting emotions colliding within him. What do you want? He snapped, defensive. What could you possibly know about my father? The words dripped with disdain. I know you're struggling, and I know how important your dad is to both of us. I've been looking into ways to help, David replied, a hint of sincerity surfacing through his polished exterior. Claire squeezed Tim's hand tightly, her eyes darting between them. What do you mean help? David took a step back, raising his hands in a placating gesture. I'm not here to make things complicated, I promise. I want to offer financial assistance. I just need to make sure your father gets the best care possible. Tim felt a wave of disbelief wash over him. You? Want to help? After offering my ex $500 to erase our past? No, David insisted, frustration creeping into his voice. That was a mistake. I realize how wrong I was. I'm doing this because I see what's at stake. If you're struggling financially, I could assist with the costs of care, maybe even find alternative insurance options. Tim felt torn. This side of David was unexpected, and the weight of desperation gnawed at him. He thought of his kids. His father. Why would you care? His skepticism was palpable. Because I love Sarah, and I can't let her be torn apart by heartbreak and loss, David admitted, his voice softening. She deserves to keep her family whole, even if it means working with you for your father's sake. Tim glanced at Claire, who nodded subtly, indicating that he needed to hear David out. What do you want in return? Tim asked, wary of any hidden motives. Nothing. I just want to help. It's a chance for us to move past the foolishness all of us created. As David's eyes locked onto Tim's, something shifted in the air. It wasn't just an offer. It was a glimmer of hope cloaked in vulnerability. After a moment swirling with silence, Tim's mind raced. The struggle to provide for his father was all-consuming, and the thought of alleviating that burden was enticing. I'll think about it, but don't get your hopes up, he replied, feeling his gut churn with uncertainty. All right, David said, relief washing over him, mixed with lingering tension. My number's on the card. Call me if you decide to take the leap. With one last nod, David strode away, leaving Tim and Claire standing amidst the heaviness of unspoken possibilities. Wow, that was unexpected, Claire said, breaking the silence. Do you think he's genuine? Tim shook his head, still processing. I don't know. But if there's a chance to help Dad, we shouldn't dismiss it out of hand. Before they could delve deeper, the door opened again, and the nurse beckoned them back into the room. Howard lay there, the monitors beeping steadily, a signal of stability, of fights yet to come. For every bit of denial swirling in the air, love and determination echoed stronger. Hey, Dad, Tim said softly, stepping closer. Howard's faded strength radiated warmth in the room. Tim, Claire, Howard smiled, the hint of laughter smoothing the lines of care etched on his face. You two look like you've just survived a battle. More like we're gearing up for one, Tim chuckled, but even through the shared lightness, the gravity of the situation loomed. As they settled into their newfound connection, Tim shared more than just the news of David's surprise offer. He touched on his fears, the uncertainties that throbbed under the surface. Things are changing, Dad. We may need to rely on others, and it feels like everything we know could slip through our fingers, he admitted, his voice thick. Howard nodded, the flicker of wisdom in his gaze kindled hope. That's okay, son. Sometimes, letting others in is the first step to reprioritizing what matters. It's about teamwork and resilience. We don't have to do this alone. Tim swallowed, grappling with the truth of that statement. With every stitch of fear woven into his heart, Howard's voice echoed clarity. This wasn't the only battle. It was about facing the truth and finding strength together, even when uncertain. Right? Tim breathed. Together. What do we need to do next? Claire interjected, her spirited energy igniting fresh determination. It was infectious, a reminder that no matter what lay ahead, they were all anchored by love. Together, they formed a plan, weaving together threads of resources and support, preparing to navigate the complexities dauntingly laid before them. Even in the face of hardship, Tim felt a flicker of hope, a drive that surged from the roots of resilience within the family. They had weathered storms before, and though darkness loomed, they would not shy away from the challenge ahead. With his family beside him, they would carve out a future, a bottle of burning light amidst the chaos, unearthing the truths that needed to be said, and holding tight to the love that bound them. As they strategized, a sense of clarity enveloped them, knitting their resolve tight against the uncertainties lying ahead. In that moment, amidst the whirring machines and soft hospital lighting, Tim felt strong in the face of adversity, knowing that while the storm had begun, they would learn how to ride it together. And as they bolstered each other's spirits in those vulnerable moments, the fight became less about survival and more about creating a tapestry of shared love and understanding, an undeniable testament to the strength that truly mattered in their small-town hearts. Before we finish this journey, I want to remind you of something incredibly important. If you've loved following Tim's story, right now is the time for you to subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that'll inspire and uplift you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm so we can keep bringing you amazing content. And don't forget to comment your reactions and feelings about this end of the journey. It really helps us connect with you. Last, but definitely not least, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to support the channel. It only takes a second, and only true fans understand how vital your actions are. Don't wait not even one more second to share.